I don't usually tell stories like this, but something about tonight makes me want to get it out. Maybe it's the way my hands are still burning from the cold. Maybe it's the way my phone keeps buzzing with photos I wasn't supposed to see. If you've ever worked a job where management told you to be grateful while they lived it up, you'll probably understand why I'm writing this. And if you've ever had to keep working in silence because you needed the paycheck, then yeah, stick with me until the end. You'll want to hear how it all plays out. It was supposed to be a holiday dinner. The company sent out this bright, cheery memo a month in advance. All associates welcome, come celebrate with us. They even plastered it on the bulletin board above the time clock, right where everyone had to see it before punching in. Free food, music, raffle prizes, a chance to feel like a team. We don't get much of that in delivery. Most of us spend our shifts alone, fighting traffic, icy porches, and customers who think $2 is a generous tip. So yeah, a warm dinner together actually sounded nice. But when the schedule dropped, guess whose name wasn't on the dinner shift? Mine. Instead, I was slotted for a solo route. The late deliveries no one else wanted. The addresses out by the river where GPS freezes. The ones with driveways like ski slopes. Coverage, my supervisor called it. Someone has to do it. Out of a crew of 9, I was the only one sent out into the storm, while the rest sat under heat lamps passing around mashed potatoes and champagne flutes. The night was brutal. Temperature in the teens, wind like knives, snow crusted into ridges that broke under my boots with every step. My van's heater coughed once and gave up completely before I even left the depot. By the second stop, my fingertips were stiff and red. By the fifth, I couldn't feel them at all. Still, I kept going. Ring the bell, smile through the scarf, set the package down, snap the proof photo, move, repeat. Every 30 minutes my phone would light up, not with customer calls, not with dispatch updates, with notifications from the group chat, selfies from the dinner table. My manager, wine glass in hand, arm around 2 teammates, plates stacked with roast beef and rolls glistening with butter. Someone captioned it, "Best team in the world." I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even mentioned. Just ignored. But I was in the system, watching my own route get longer as she reassigned pickups mid-shift to make her numbers look better. At one stop, I slipped on black ice and went down hard, my knee slamming into the corner of a step. The customer actually gasped when they opened the door. But when I asked for a moment to catch my breath, my phone buzzed again, manager reminding me not to fall behind. I typed back, "Heater's dead, ice everywhere, I might need backup." Her reply came in seconds, a picture of the dessert buffet with the caption, "Be a team player, we're counting on you." I don't know what kept me moving. Stubbornness, maybe, or the fact that rent doesn't wait for injuries. A bodega owner gave me hand warmers out of pity. A paramedic who happened to be shopping told me my skin was turning gray. I laughed it off, but inside I felt something shift, not just physically, but in my patience. I'd taken her orders before, swallowed worse, but this time I started taking screenshots. Every message, every reassignment, every little proof that while they were toasting each other, I was being set up to fail. By the time I limped back to the depot after midnight, my clothes stiff with ice, she was already posting again, a boomerang video of the team clinking glasses captioned, "So lucky to have this crew?" I stared at it until the screen blurred, not lucky enough to include me, not loyal enough to keep promises about voluntary holiday shifts, not smart enough to realize everything was time-stamped, logged, and sitting in my pocket. I didn't say a word to her when I clocked out, just nodded, pulled my frozen gloves tighter, and drove home in silence. But as I sat in the dark later, thawing my fingers in a bowl of lukewarm water, I realized something. The night wasn't just miserable. It was evidence. Evidence that would matter more than she could ever guess. And that's where this story really begins. The next morning, the official company email still said the same thing it had for weeks. Holiday dinner for all associates. Mandatory coverage will not be assigned. Voluntary shifts only. I didn't need to reread it. I'd already saved a PDF to my phone the first time it hit my inbox. Something about the tone had felt too cheerful, too fake, like a balloon stretched thin over sharp edges. See, policies are one thing, people are another. On paper, the company looked generous. Meal stipends, raffle prizes, even an Uber voucher to get us home safely. But in practice, managers held the keys. My manager in particular had this way of smiling at corporate emails like they were inside jokes. She'd nod along in meetings, then later say, "Look, that's just corporate speak. We have to be realistic here." Realistic, in her dictionary, meant protecting her metrics. Quotas first, bodies second. If a route went long, if overtime crept too high, she was the one who had to answer for it. So she cut corners in silence and rewrote voluntary into whoever she could pressure. This year, that was me. The schedule dropped with no warning, just a message in the crew chat. Route 12 will be covered. Thanks, my name, for stepping up. No one asked me, no one gave me a choice. She framed it like I'd volunteered, and the team nodded along, because who wants to be the one to argue and get their hours cut next week? I tried to push back, gently. I messaged her privately. I didn't sign up for this. I'd planned to be at the dinner. She replied with a string of dots. Then, "We all have to sacrifice sometimes. Don't make this harder than it is." The thing is, she didn't stop at just assigning me the shift. She stacked the deck. My route was stitched together with the worst stops, addresses at the farthest edges of the map, the ones most likely to complain if you were a minute late. And she did it knowing full well our vans hadn't been winterized properly. Mine had a broken heater ticketed weeks ago. Dispatch shrugged and told me, "We'll get to it after peak season." Meanwhile, she and the rest of the crew weren't just at the dinner. They were excused from coverage entirely, which might have been fine if she'd left it at that. But she didn't. She kept checking in on me throughout the night, not with help, not with backup, but with texts designed to keep me on the hook. At one point, I requested a hazard pause, a formal option in our app that lets you stop the clock if weather makes the route unsafe. It's rare, but it exists for a reason. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a denial, not from dispatch, from her. Direct override. She even added a note. Other drivers manage. Don't exaggerate. That one I screenshotted twice. I started noticing the little humiliations stacking up. When I slowed down to clear ice off a customer's steps, her text pinged, "Try to move faster." When I called in to report the heater had fully died, she sent back a meme from the dinner table. A cartoon snowman, arms raised, captioned, "Just chill." She thought it was funny. The rest of the team played along, at least publicly. They reacted to her posts with laughing emojis, commented about how good the food was. But one coworker DM'd me quietly. "Dude, I'm sorry. I thought you volunteered. This is messed up." That message didn't erase the cold burning into my skin, but it did something else. It proved I wasn't crazy, that someone else saw the lie. By midnight, I was running on fumes, knees swollen from the fall earlier, phone buzzing like a leash. I kept telling myself, just finish the route, just get through it. But another part of me, the quieter, sharper part, was cataloging every detail, every contradiction between policy and practice, every text, every timestamp, every decision she made to keep herself comfortable while I froze. Because the truth was clear now. This wasn't just a bad night. It wasn't just me being unlucky. It was a system of double standards where the people at the bottom were disposable, and the people at the top insulated themselves with warm food and fake smiles. And I knew that if I let it slide, she'd do it again. To me, to someone else. So while she raised her glass for another photo, I quietly raised my camera too. Screenshot, save, backup. It wasn't revenge yet. Not even close. It was preparation, and it was only the beginning. By the time the storm really hit, I was already running late. The roads weren't just slick anymore. They were alive, shifting under my tires, snow building in ridges that jerked the van sideways. Every time I hit the brakes, it felt like the whole vehicle wanted to slide off the map. My wipers squealed uselessly, smearing ice across the windshield until I had to lean forward, squinting through the blur like it was smoke. I kept telling myself, just one more delivery, just one more stop. But each address felt farther away than the last. Houses sat back from the road, driveways like frozen ski jumps, porches buried under drifts. Customers want me to climb their steps anyway, leave the box neatly, take the picture. If I left it by the gate, I'd get reported. If I left it uncovered, snow would soak the box, and I'd get dinged for damage. So I hauled every package up, slipping, catching myself on railings, my breath coming out in little clouds I couldn't even feel anymore. At one place, a porch light flicked on just as I stumbled, and a man in sweatpants opened the door with his phone already raised. "Smile, buddy, you're on TikTok," he laughed, filming me as I tried to balance a 30-pound box on an ice sheet. I wanted to tell him my hands were going numb, that I couldn't feel my knees, that if I fell again, I might not get up. But all I did was smile weakly and set the box down. He captioned it something like, "Even in a blizzard, packages still arrive." My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Our company account had been tagged. I pulled out my phone at the van, thinking maybe this would finally get me back up. Maybe she'd see how bad it was. Instead, her message popped up before I could even type. A photo of the dessert table. Her hand holding a fork midair, captioned, "Be a team player. We all work hard." I don't remember exactly what I felt reading that. Anger, sure. But mostly it was this hollow click inside me, like a lock turning. Something that said, "Don't argue. Don't beg. Just save it." So I screenshotted her message with the timestamp, slid my phone back in my pocket, and kept moving. Half an hour later, my knee gave out halfway up a porch. I went down hard, both knees smacking wood. For a second I just lay there, blinking at the snow falling into my eyes, the cold settling deep into the bones. A woman opened the door, gasped, and reached out a hand to help me up. "Are you okay?" she asked. I lied and said yes. She wanted to call someone, maybe even the company, but I begged her not to. Just let me get back to the van. It wasn't all bad, though. At a little corner store, the owner saw me shivering as I loaded boxes and wordlessly handed me 2 hand warmers. "On the house," he said. I thanked him, shoved them into my gloves, and almost cried from the sudden heat. Later, a paramedic in line at a gas station stared at my face and told me flatly, "Your skin's turning gray. That's not good. Get inside." I nodded, pretended I would, then went right back to the van. Every time I thought I was catching up, the route stretched longer. Extra pickups kept appearing on my scanner, rerouted mid-shift. That wasn't dispatch. That was her. I could tell from the little notes in the app, her initials tucked next to the updates. She was padding her numbers while I froze, and every time she did it, my phone buzzed with a reminder to move faster. I finally pulled over, hands shaking so badly I couldn't even type. I used the hazard pause again, the only card I had left. Within 2 minutes, it was denied. A text followed. "Stop exaggerating. Everyone else manages." Attached was a blurry boomerang of her glass clinking with the others. That was the moment I stopped thinking of it as a bad night and started thinking of it as evidence. Not just for me, for anyone who'd ever been shoved into the cold while management toasted themselves. My body was in survival mode, but my mind had shifted gears. Every mile, every stop, every fall, I was recording it now, storing it away like fuel. By the time I limped back to the depot close to 1 Mile AM, my pants were stiff with ice, my gloves shredded, my hands raw. She wasn't there, of course. She'd signed out hours ago from the warmth of the restaurant, but her final post was waiting in the chat. A group photo, everyone smiling under golden lights, captioned, "Best team ever." I wasn't in it. I never was. I stared at that photo for a long time in the empty van. Then I hit save. Another piece of the puzzle. Another nail in the coffin she didn't even realize she was building for herself. And as I drove home on silent roads, heater still dead, I realized something. My body might have been frozen, but my patience? That was long gone. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a case. I wish I could say that night ended when I staggered into the depot, but it didn't. She wasn't done. Not even close. When I finally logged my last delivery, I thought I could drive the frozen van back, clock out, and collapse into bed. Instead, my scanner pinged with a new notification. 3 extra returns. Packages that weren't even mine originally, now reassigned to me at the last possible minute. No explanation, no backup, just dumped on my route like trash no one else wanted to carry. It wasn't dispatch. I knew their codes, their notes, the way they logged things. This had her fingerprints all over it. She wanted the numbers to look clean for her metrics. 0 missed returns, 0 flagged items. And the easiest way to pull that off? Shove them onto the one driver already out in the cold. The one who couldn't argue without sounding like he was just whining. My knee was throbbing so hard it felt like it had its own pulse. My fingers had gone past pain into something worse, this eerie numbness that scared me more than the sting ever did. Still, I tried to play it by the book. I hit the hazard pause again, typed in a note about unsafe conditions, about frostbite risk. 2 minutes later, denied. Again. But this time, I didn't just take the hit. I called her. She answered on speaker, laughter in the background, voices chattering, the clink of glasses. "What's up?" she asked, like I'd just interrupted a party game. I kept my voice steady. "The van's heater is dead. Roads are iced. I've already fallen twice. I can't do these extra returns safely. We need to reschedule or assign backup." She sighed like I'd asked her to babysit. "Look, everyone's tired. Just finish it. You'll be fine." "I won't be fine," I said. "This isn't safe." There was a pause, then a sharper edge in her tone. "Don't exaggerate. We all have to push through sometimes. Be a team player." And then she laughed at something someone said at her table. I heard silverware hit a plate. Music swelled in the background. I don't know what made me do it, but I toggled the record button on my phone. In my state, hunched in the freezing van, I didn't even think about it. One-party consent state or not, I just knew I needed her words saved. Her voice, clear, denying safety requests while she sat warm and fed, telling me to push through. When she hung up, I just sat there for a while, phone glowing in my palm, the recording saved. My breath fogged the glass. My knees ached, and I realized this wasn't just negligence. This was deliberate. I forced myself back on the road, but something was different. Each stop felt like wading through water. My vision blurred at the edges. At one house, I fumbled the scanner so badly the customer had to hand it back to me. She looked at my hands, skin blotchy white, and said softly, "Honey, you need to get inside." I smiled, thanked her, and lied again. "I'm fine." By the time I rolled back into the depot for real, it was past 1 a.m. My shift report showed 13 hours on the clock, over 200 miles, dozens of stops, 3 reassignments. All while the rest of the crew was tagged in photos under twinkling lights. Full plates, full glasses. Her final post of the night hit the group chat just as I slid my scanner into the dock. A boomerang video, the team clinking champagne glasses. Caption, "So proud of this crew. Best holiday ever." I wasn't in it, of course not. I didn't respond, didn't say a word. Just clocked out, pulled my frozen gloves tighter, and drove home in silence. My body was wrecked, my skin raw, my knees swollen. But my phone? My phone was heavy with proof. Screenshots, timestamps, texts. And now, her voice. It wasn't anger fueling me anymore. It was something colder, calmer. The realization that I didn't need to shout. Didn't need to beg anyone to see what was happening. All I had to do was show them. And the best part? She'd handed me everything herself. I woke up late the next day, if you can even call it waking up. It was more like crawling out of a frozen fog. My hands were swollen, stiff, wrapped in cheap drugstore bandages I'd bought at 2 a.m. on the way home. My knees ached every time I shifted, each throb a reminder of that porch step. For a while, I just sat on the edge of my bed staring at the floor, replaying the night in fragments. The ice, the laughter in her background, the group photos I wasn't in. Most mornings, after a brutal shift, I just force myself to move on. Clock back in, keep quiet, hope for better luck next time. But not this time. Something had cracked open. The anger was still there, sure, but underneath it was something steadier, clearer, a decision. I pulled my laptop onto my knees and started digging. First, the basics. Our official holiday memo. I'd already saved it as a PDF, but I highlighted the part that mattered. Holiday dinner is open to all associates. Coverage will be voluntary. Next, I pulled up the shift roster. Screenshot, my name on the late route, everyone else excused. Then the messages. I scrolled back through every text she sent that night. The denials, the sarcastic memes, the photos of desserts. I saved them all in a folder labeled Holiday Coverage, Evidence. The timestamps lined up neatly with my delivery logs, which I exported from the Route app. The GPS breadcrumbs told the story better than I ever could. How many miles, how long between stops, where I'd paused for safety and been denied. Piece by piece, I built a timeline. Not just of a bad night, but of deliberate choices. Her choices. The injury report came next. I'd half filled one out at the depot weeks earlier, when my van heater first died. The mechanic had signed it. Noted needs replacement. That ticket was still open. Add it to the pile. I called my clinic and asked if they could send me the summary from my visit that morning. Frost nip, mild contusions, recommend limited exposure. Not life-threatening, but documented. Another piece for the file. And then, the crown jewel, the recording. Her voice, casual, dismissive, layered with laughter and background music, telling me not to exaggerate, to push through, while she sat at a dinner table she'd promised would be for everyone. I saved it in 3 places. My phone, my cloud drive, and a USB stick I'd bought years ago for school projects. By noon, my desktop looked like a war table. Documents, screenshots, audio files. A dossier, clean and tight. I drafted 2 emails. The first was to HR and compliance. Subject line, holiday coverage policy violation, evidence attached. I kept it factual, professional. Bullet points with dates, times, attachments. No ranting, no emotion, just the truth, stacked neatly like bricks. The second was to the regional director, shorter, calmer. Request for safety review regarding December holiday coverage. I attached the policy memo, the roster, and 1 screenshot. Just enough to raise a flag without looking like I was out for blood. But I didn't hit send, not yet, because I knew from experience that evidence alone wasn't always enough. They'd try to spin it, downplay it, say it was a miscommunication. I needed one more piece, something that showed this wasn't just me crying foul, something external. So I sat back, sipping instant coffee from a chipped mug, and thought about all the people who'd seen me that night. The woman on the porch who helped me up, the bodega owner who gave me hand warmers, the paramedic who warned me my skin was gray, even the customer who filmed me on TikTok. His video had tagged the company account. If I could connect those dots, if I could show her choices weren't just hidden abuse, but public, visible negligence, then she couldn't wriggle out of it. The idea settled into me like a slow warmth. For the first time since I'd stepped out into that storm, I wasn't just surviving. I was planning. That night, as snow drifted against my window, I looked at the growing folder on my laptop and whispered to myself, it's enough. Almost enough. Because the pain in my body was temporary. The silence in my inbox was temporary. But what I was building, that was permanent, and I wasn't going to waste it. The universe has a strange way of giving you exactly what you need when you stop begging for it. I'd already built a fortress of screenshots and policy quotes, but I knew it might not be enough. She was slick, practiced in that managerial art of turning every problem into miscommunication. HR loved those words. Regional directors ate them up. If it came down to her word against mine, she'd flash a smile and say, I misunderstood, that she was only joking, that it was just a long night. And then out of nowhere, the cracks started to widen. The first message came from someone I barely knew, a line cook at the restaurant where they'd held the dinner. We'd met once when I delivered a bulk order to the kitchen. He DM'd me on Instagram. Hey, I saw your manager last night. Comped drinks with the company card. Didn't look like business, more like a party. She posted a story, but deleted it. Attached was a screenshot, her glass raised high, captioned, Cheers to me, I earned this. Timestamp matched perfectly with the hours she was denying my hazard pauses. She hadn't just ignored me. She'd bragged about it online, then tried to cover her tracks. I saved it instantly. Another brick. Then a dispatcher I trusted, one of the quiet ones who'd been with the company for years, pulled me aside in the break room. He slid his phone across the table. An internal note sat open on the screen, her initials tagged, Route 12, returns reassigned for end-of-night closure. The kind of thing most drivers never saw, hidden in back-end logs. He looked at me, eyes tired but firm. I can't send it, but you can take a picture. Click. Another brick. That night, I limped into the clinic for a follow-up, just to be sure my knee wasn't fractured. The nurse glanced at my chart and muttered, Second driver we've seen this week for cold exposure. She printed out my visit summary. Frostnip contusion, recommend modified duty. Black and white. Official. If corporate wanted medical confirmation, I had it. And just when I thought I had enough, fate handed me the sharpest tool yet. Remember that customer who filmed me slipping on his porch? The one who posted it with a laughing caption? His video didn't just go to TikTok. It had been reshared in a local Facebook group for our town. People were tagging the company account, writing comments like, Why is this poor guy out in a blizzard when the whole crew's at a dinner? Someone had stitched his video with screenshots of the manager's own posts from the restaurant. The contrast was brutal. Me, stumbling in the snow. Her, raising a glass in warmth. I didn't even have to dig for it. It landed in my lap, circulating faster than she could delete. By the end of that week, my folder wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a story, a complete narrative told through screenshots, policies, voices, witnesses, and now the public eye. Every piece linked to the next. Policy said voluntary. Schedule said forced. Texts said denial. Recording said neglect. External witnesses said fraud. Social media said hypocrisy. She thought she was untouchable, wrapped in dinner lights and company cards. But she'd forgotten one thing. The world was watching, and I was ready to show them exactly what they needed to see. So I opened my laptop again, attached the final files to my drafts, and hovered over the send button. HR Regional Director. Even corporate PR, if I wanted to. My finger trembled, not from cold this time, but from anticipation. I didn't feel like a victim anymore, not even close. I felt like a fuse, ready to be lit. When I finally hit send, it was less dramatic than I'd imagined. No thunder, no drum roll, just a quiet whoosh as my emails disappeared into the system. But less than 24 hours later, the storm broke. HR replied first. The message was short, almost sterile. We have received your report. Evidence is under review. Please refrain from further discussion with colleagues until contacted. Corporate speak, but I knew what it meant. They weren't brushing it off. The attachments had been too clean, too undeniable. By the afternoon, my regional director's assistant called me directly. We're scheduling an immediate safety review, she said, voice tight. Do not delete any records. We'll be in touch. And just like that, the balance shifted. The fallout started small. Our crew chat went silent. No more memes, no more laughing selfies. A few teammates sent me side messages. One admitted she'd been told the dinner was mandatory fun, and she'd felt guilty the whole night. Another said he thought I'd volunteered and didn't realize I was out there alone. Slowly, their guilt started to leak through the cracks. Then came the suspension. She was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Officially, no one was supposed to talk about it, but everyone did. The depot hummed with half whispers that she'd lost her Q4 bonus, that corporate had frozen her expense account, that auditors were combing through the restaurant, bill line by line, and outside the walls of the depot, the story had already slipped its leash. That TikTok of me stumbling in the snow, paired with screenshots of her dinner posts, was still bouncing through local groups. Neighbors were outraged. Comments poured in, "Treat your drivers better," "Shameful," "This poor guy deserves hazard pay." Someone even started a GoFundMe titled, "Buy this driver a heater." I didn't ask for it, didn't want it, but the sentiment spread faster than I could control. By the end of the week, the company made a public statement. "We take safety seriously. We are reviewing holiday scheduling policies to ensure equitable treatment for all employees." Corporate speak again, but the meaning was clear. They knew the optics were bad, and they were scrambling to cover themselves. Meanwhile, my inbox filled with official forms: back pay for the overtime hours, medical compensation for the frost nip, a formal apology letter from HR, full of phrases like "deeply regret" and "failure to meet standards." None of it warmed my hands or fixed my knee, but it wasn't nothing. The best part, though, wasn't money. It was the ripple effect. A week after my complaint, the company announced a winter safety pilot program. Routes would be suspended during red alerts. Drivers would receive hazard pay during storms. Managers could no longer override hazard pauses without regional approval. All of it born from one night they tried to bury. And as for her, she went quiet. No more Instagram posts. No more motivational quotes in the group chat. She disappeared from the depot like a ghost, leaving behind a trail of frozen laughter no one wanted to claim. For the first time in months, I drove my route with the heater fixed, my gloves warm, and a strange lightness in my chest. Not because I trusted the company now, but because I knew they'd seen what happens when you push someone too far. They thought I'd just freeze and forget. Instead, I froze and documented. And the cold doesn't lie. Justice doesn't always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it's quieter, more surgical. By the time the dust settled, my manager's suspension turned into a permanent absence. The official line was policy noncompliance, but everyone knew. Her bonus evaporated, her title stripped, her reputation sunk beneath the weight of screenshots she'd created herself. For me, though, the story didn't end with HR's apology. The real twist came from the outside. One morning, I opened my inbox to find an email from a competitor, one of the companies we always joked about, the other guys with brighter trucks and better branding. Their regional recruiter had seen the TikTok thread, the Facebook shares, even the local news blurb that picked it up. He wrote, "We'd like to meet. Drivers like you are the reason our customers stay safe during storms. We value that." I almost laughed. Weeks earlier, I was invisible, freezing in silence while my own manager toasted herself. Now, someone else was offering me warmth. The interview wasn't really an interview. It was a conversation. They asked me what happened, what I thought needed to change in the industry. I told them the truth, same as I documented. Heaters need fixing. Hazard pauses should be respected. Drivers shouldn't be punished for surviving storms. They listened. And then they offered me a contract, higher pay, better routes, hazard bonuses during peak weather. I accepted on the spot. When I walked into their depot on my first day, they handed me keys to a van with a heater that blasted hot air within minutes. They gave me gloves, boots, even a company-branded thermos. "We take care of our own," the supervisor said. I believed him, if only because he didn't have to say it at all. But the real punchline came weeks later. Word spread quietly that my old manager had applied there too. She'd walked in with her resume, her forced smile, her practice pitch. And guess who they asked for a reference? Me. I didn't rant, didn't embellish. I just forwarded the dossier. Screenshots, policies, her voice on the recording. The recruiter's reply was 2 words long. Understood. Thanks. Her offer never materialized. It wasn't revenge in the dramatic sense. No shouting match, no courtroom finale. Just a door quietly closing, a mirror held up to her choices. She had frozen me out of a holiday dinner. Now she was the one standing outside, face pressed to the glass, watching opportunity slip away. Meanwhile, change rippled outward. My old depot instituted new safety briefings. Routes were paused during storms for the first time in years. Drivers whispered thanks when they saw me, subtle nods in the break room. And in the community, customers started leaving cocoa stations by their doors for drivers. A little gesture that said, "We see you." I finished one shift with warm fingers for the first time in months, stepping onto a porch where a thermos of hot chocolate steamed beside the package drop. I stood there for a moment, the snow falling soft around me, heater humming in the van behind me. My phone buzzed with a new route, but also with an email notification. Corporate had approved my hazard pay claim. The world hadn't turned perfect. It never does. But it had turned just enough. As I sipped that cocoa, I realized something. Sometimes the cold doesn't just take. Sometimes it gives you clarity, proof, a path. And sometimes, if you hold out long enough, it freezes the right people in place so they can finally face the thaw.